In today's low-code feature focus, I'll be featuring the action grid filtering action. The action grid filtering action allows an action form to trigger filtering on a grid. So in this demo, I'll first demonstrate an example of how the standard filtering of action grid might not give the results that we need, and also how the action grid filtering action can give a more targeted result. Next, I'll build the solution from scratch so that you can see exactly how to use the action grid filtering action. So let's get started. What I've built is just a very simple action grid that has users. It's out of the users table, and it has the built-in action grid search. And so, for example, if I search for a prefix, a name prefix like Dale, and I do DA, I get not only the names that begin with Dale, but because DA appears in the last name of Mary Hadalam, we get her record as well. So it doesn't really filter the way that I would hope it would. And so I built a filtering where I can filter on first name beginning with Dale and or DA and hit search, and it just finds the one that I want. And so that feature, the action grid filtering action, is the one that I wanted to focus on today. So I have a separate form here, the same thing, but without the form built in. And so on this page, I thought we would just build it real quick. It's pretty simple to do. So what I'm going to do is to add an action form to my page. And so we'll build that first name, last name form. And I'm going to start with a blank form and just add a few simple things. Now, I always recommend that you name your modules. It makes it easier as you're doing other things down the line. So we'll call this the filtering form. And we're going to add a text box field called first name. And we'll add another one called last name. And finally, we'll add this search button. And this is where the action is going to happen, where we will filter this grid. So we'll go down to the actions of this and add an action and search for grid. And the thing that we're going to do is to filter the action grid. So this allows us to send filtering to a particular action grid. So we'll filter our users grid. And see, I named that grid when I built it. So it doesn't say action grid, it says users grid. And we're going to filter that, and we're going to add we're going to do it down here in the additional data. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass a first name parameter, and it's going to have the value from our form of first name. And in the same way, we're going to pass last name, and it's going to have the value from our form of last name. So that's it on this side. Let's see what it's done for us. So we now have our form, and if we look up here in the URL, we can see that we're the page that we're on and nothing is in there yet. But if I search for DA, and let's add a WAR in here as well, so we can see it work. When we hit search, that action grid filtering has added these parameters, first name, last name, into the end of it. And so if we modify our grid to be able to pay attention to these parameters, it's going to do the work that we want. So let's take a look at how to do that. And this is there's nothing particularly magical here. We're going to go into our data source, and where we currently have a database table, we're just going to add a where clause. And to speed things along, I'm going to copy and paste the where clause. And so this is the SQL. It's just saying I want the first name and we're going to get the first name from our URL and the last name from our URL. There's another syntax that's available here if you don't have my tokens that you can use to retrieve these, but I'm using the my tokens, highly recommend it as a good tool. So we update our data source, and so I'm going to go to an empty page and hit DA and search, and now this grid responds to the parameters that we've added. So action grid filtering, very simple, very fast. You can add lots of different filters and then just incorporate those into your grid. In today's low-code feature focus, we covered how to use the action grid filtering action by building an action grid and filtering it using an action form and the action called Action Grid Filtering. I hope that's been of value to you. Is there some feature you'd like to see in our next video? Leave a comment in the section below. For more great low-code content, be sure to subscribe to Planten App.